and entirely free to join. And the whole vision behind the Animal Activism Mentorship Program is to empower more people to get active for the animals and be as effective as possible. You know, there's very few vegans in the world, right? And of those vegans, only about 1% are activists. So imagine if we could get more activists to join, we would just be a much more powerful voice for the animals, and we can bring animal liberation so much sooner. So that's the whole vision behind it, is to create an environment where we can help one another grow and teach one another, provide resources. So if you join the program, you can get assigned a mentor for free that will guide you and teach you maybe different forms of activism, show you resources for you to gain more knowledge and how to be more effective when you're doing activism. So Mike, you already dropped that link. Animalactivismmentorship.com in the chat. So go ahead and check that out. We also have a Facebook group that I think is really great to join, because that's where we're going to post events such as this workshop there. So we do have a wide variety of topics that we cover in these workshops. So I really encourage you to join that group as well, so that you can stay informed and, continue gaining knowledge. So let's get started with today's topic. This is an outreach workshop. And in this workshop, we're going to be talking about a few different things to make your outreach effective. First, we're going to be talking about different ways to do outreach and like how to attract attention and engage in conversations. Next, we're going to be talking about a technique known as the Socratic Method, which is very effective in having that dialogue with people. And third, we're going to be talking about having composure and self-assessment after you've engaged in a conversation. But before we get into all that, I want to introduce to you all the mentors that are going to be facilitating this workshop, starting with myself. So my name is Christy. I've been vegan for 3 years, and I've been active for almost 2 years. I've been an organizer with Anonymous for the Voiceless, but I've also just organized random things on my own because I felt empowered to do so, and I wanted some kind of action, and I've invited others to join me. So I'm very excited to have you all here, and hopefully we can all learn and grow together. With that said, I want to also bring up Debbie, who's another mentor in our program.
Hi, morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all those who are joining from around the world. My name is Debbie from San Diego, California. My light bulb moment was 3 years ago when I watched Earthlings, and I wanted to get active right away. I just felt lied to, I felt like a fool, and I wanted everybody else to know. So a month later, I went out and I joined a Cube of Truth, and I started becoming active. Some of the protests, well, the outreach I like to do are protests, chalking, stickering, outreach, marches, vigils, social media, TikTok and Facebook. Love wearing swag, just putting it out there every day with a simple necklace or t-shirt, hat. I call and write to companies and businesses, my PTA, sanctuaries, visits, and posting that on Facebook. I write messages on my cars, and now I would like to pass it off to Val from Italy, our first speaker, and she's gonna take it from there on different types and after she introduces herself.
Hello everyone, I'm Val. It's short for Valentina. I'm from Caltanissetta in Sicily, in Italy. I'm a vegan teacher. I teach English, Italian to Italian children. And I've been vegan for about 8 years. After 20 years of vegetarianism, 9 years ago, I found out about the cruelty behind dairy and eggs and honey and animal products in general. So I switched to vegan, and it was the best choice of my life. And then I became an activist. Thanks to the social media, I met people, especially on Facebook and in person, and and I'm like, I can tell that I'm like a 100% activist. Like that's all I do. Like I find what is important is the animals need our voice. So there's opportunities out there to speak for them. And because they get enslaved, they get tortured, they get used in all types of ways. So once you know what happens to them, you have to find ways to protect them and speak for them and tell people, the truth, because people in general want to know the truth. So it is important to do activism, so to help others and help the animals and help the planet in general. So I'd like to talk to you about all the different types of activism. There are so many types. It's unbelievable. And I find myself that I learn from people when I talk to them. There's always room for us for improvement. And when I first started doing activism, it was for the circus, because a lot of people, like vegetarians or even non-vegetarians, they don't like the torture that's behind, in the circus. So I started, doing like little protests outside the circus. And once I started talking to people, I learned how to talk to them and listen to them and help them understand how cruel it is to use animals as entertainment, because they're not here for us. Animals are not here for us. They're here on this planet with us. Back then, so I'm talking about like 7 years ago, I didn't know about any groups. I didn't know other vegans in my town. And I just like Googling, I found a beautiful animal sanctuary in Texas, the Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. So I decided to just take the flight all the way from Sicily, go to Texas, just to meet the animals, the farm animals who have been rescued in this sanctuary. And it was just enlightening. It was beautiful. I learned so much from them, and they all have a personality, and they're funny, they can be shy, they are curious. And so having the approach with these animals helped me do better with my activism. When I came back from the beautiful journey, from the beautiful vacation in Texas, I had pictures to show my students. So I started doing outreach in class. There's so many things that are wrong in the workbooks for children, because they represent animals in all sorts of ways, as food, like leather, fur, entertainment, like there's so many things that are wrong in the books. So with the children, I discuss these books, and they help me change the exercises as well. Sometimes we change the stories in the English language, because that's what I teach little kids. And so we're changing the books, we're changing all the tests, to the point that I ended up calling Cambridge and telling them the truth, that I didn't like the books. And I'm working a lot. I'm working very much to change, the textbooks, and to see animals as living beings, as companions, as friends, and not as slaves or as food or as fabric. Besides what I do in class, I did join some groups like the Cuba Truth, and some protest, but I believe that I cannot wait, because the animals cannot wait for me to wait for a big event in my town. which can happen only maybe once a month or even like once a week. The animals are being enslaved and tortured and killed every second. Right now, while we're speaking, they're being tortured and killed and enslaved for food, for fun, for like many ways. So I cannot wait for a big event organized by a big group. So I started being a solo activist, giving the example that even just one voice can be helpful for them. I started doing protests outside the circus, whipping the stuffed animals. And at the beginning, it was tough because people from the circus, they're not very friendly. And so at the beginning, I got a lot of bad words and fingers, but I never stopped, to the point that I got families at the attention, and I saw children getting attracted from what I was doing and asking me questions and watching the footage that I was showing from the computer that I was holding. And I see entire families walking back. You know, they never entered the show, and they actually joined me for a picture, for a video together, or showing the signs to the other people who were going to the show. Other people they came back from the show and came up to me saying, "You were right. The videos that you showed us, they're true. They are whipping the horses. They use the hook against the elephant, and I don't want to go anymore." So again, even like by myself, I was capable to speak for them, to speak for the voiceless. But it's not just for the animals at the circus. What I do is like finding ways to talk to people, even like in the supermarket, or on the street, or at the cinema, and all the events. I don't even wait for like an event that uses the animals, like the circus, or the shows, or maybe they doing like a barbecue and stuff. But I also find a way to speak for the animals during events that are not using the animals. So for example, if at the cinema, at the theater, they're showing a film that shows the animals are happy and free, I take advantage of, I use the opportunity to thank people for watching that show, supporting that show, and not going to eventually another one that uses the animals. So there's a lot of ways to do activism, to do outreach. So I would love to show you pictures of what I do. So if you just give me a second. Okay. Can everybody see this?
Okay. There we go. Now we see it.
All right. So here I was in North Carolina at an animal sanctuary where I volunteered, and I got to know the each individual. Here's in another animal sanctuary in Georgia. So what I like to do, well, that was before the pandemic. I like just taking a flight, going somewhere and volunteer at animal sanctuaries and take pictures, take photos, videos, stories, collect stories, meet people. So when I come back, I can bring the stories into school, into my classes, and the kids, love the stories, and they learn that the animals, they're all happy and free rather than on a farm. Here I was, I think I was somewhere in Georgia, yeah, and what I did, there was a farm, like farm festival, yeah, farmers market, and I was just standing there giving leaflets, with vegan recipes. Because you talk about animals and a lot of people say, yeah, we love animals. but maybe they go home, they don't know what to cook, they don't know what to eat. So I have leaflets, I have recipes and material, to hand them. I was doing a protest. I joined a lovely group in North Carolina, and so it was on the news as well. Now, right after the protest, we decided to send one of us, I volunteered to go and see the show and take footage and take videos and take photos, because sometimes people don't believe us. People think, yeah, that circus, that does not hit the animals. And that's a picture that I took myself, of what they're doing, what they do to the elephants. They tease them with the marshmallows, with sweets, and treats, but they actually use the hook. This is my solo protest outside the circus. So I do this every single night right after work, for every night, while the tent is there. So with the same signs, with the same material that I use for the protest, I just sometimes, I go with my mom to the farmer's market, and while she's doing the shopping, I wait outside and I leave the signs and I show the videos, because there are families going to the market, and right after the market, maybe at night, they might go to the circus. So I speak for the animals during the opportunity. This was right in front of McDonald's, which is very popular here in Italy. A lot of kids go to McDonald's just to gather. So I started going, some kids took this picture of me, but then they wanted to join. They took the masks on of the animals, and they told me they will not go to the circus, and they will give their leaflets to their friends as well. Right after the circus, there was Dumbo at the theater. So I asked the owner of the theater to let me in, and he was fine with that. He was actually happy. And so what I did was showing footage, the signs against the circus, but I was thanking people for watching Dumbo free, and on a big screen, rather than watching Dumbo, slaved and working in a circus. And they got the message. So it was like a positive outreach. It's always positive because you made people think. Same for the Lion King. There was they did a musical with the Lion King, with people dressed up in costumes as animals. So I was right there outside the theater, thanking people for watching the Lion King represented with humans, rather than the other way, watching animals being humanized and being, it's ridiculous what they do to the animals at the circus. Friday for Future. Friday for Future, it was a big event all over the world. In my town, all schools joined just to take a day off from school, and without even getting a message of, global warming and climate change. I dressed up in a cow costume, and I just walked with the students. I was just by myself, showing signs and telling people that the meat industry is actually killing the planet. So I spoke on the stage. I was able to invite some activists into my class, because it was an English lesson. And all students were really amazed by the stories that they could hear, and they were curious and they wanted to know more about the animal agriculture. This is me with the kids. This is, I walk on the street, and when I see, fur jacket and, see here, I was speaking to this lady, and I was asking her if I could check, her hood to see if the fur was real or not. And if it was real, I will give the leaflets, I will give information, and so I you know, it's not like about blaming people. It's about giving information. So don't be afraid to do solo activism. And, you know, once you start, you know, it can be, you know, it's a challenge, but you get a lot of strength from people as well, because people want to know the truth and they're happy to talk to you. I mean, they're curious. Chalkivism, it's a good thing to do. It's fun and it attracts the people's attention. Here I was walking on the beach. I went to the beach with my mom and there were a lot of people, you know, looking at the beach. So I took the stones, I took some rocks and I wrote down, if you love animals, go vegan. And by doing that, people were getting, you know, curious and asking why are you writing so? Or, you know, how long have you been vegan? What do you eat? Yeah, sometimes cars are dirty. So instead of, you know, writing, you know, the old fashioned, like wash me, go vegan, but this is just fun. I go to the restaurant, they give you paper towel, things to, you know, to throw away. I find the opportunity to write down messages. Churches. Italy is like Catholic, is super Catholic. You see old ladies going to the church, going to the mass, wearing jackets made of fur, wearing coats made of fur. And this is San Francis. I cannot picture San Francis, you know, wearing fur, going to the circus or eating the lamb. If you're religious, you should picture Jesus. You should picture a saint cuddling the lamb and not chopping off, you know, in pieces. So that's a good opportunity to leave leaflets as well. Public transportation, stickering. During the pandemic, Italy was one of the first countries, like right after China, who started the lockdown, and we were waiting outside the supermarkets with, you know, our trolleys. And so during the campaign that we did with Animal Activism Mentorship group, so we created a sign that goes, eating animals and products equals COVID-19, because that's what COVID-19 is. It's a zoonotic disease, and zoonotic pandemics, they don't start of, you know, zucchini or broccoli or lentils. You know, you have the swine flu, the bird flu, the mad cow disease. They all they all come from animals, you know, consuming animals. So what I did, these are stickers in my car. I waited outside the store for my turn, but I showed this sign about the zoonotic disease in my cart. So again, lots of ways to show your you know, to do outreach and to start a conversation with people. I'm trying to go to another photo, but yeah, it's kind of stuck. Sorry. Yeah. But yeah, I have tons and tons. So again, like, find your ways to talk to people, ask them questions, use the Socratic method, and without judgment, because most of us were not born vegan. And be active. You know, find your local group or start solo activism in a nice way. You know, like, good dialogue. You have to be able to listen to people, and once you start, you cannot stop. I mean, I will stop when the animal abuse will stop. So if you feel lonely, you can always, you have your phone. There are people supporting you, encouraging you. You know, if you need tricks, contact me, and we're here, you know, to help you. If you reach the this AAM program, we are super happy to help you and with your outreach. So Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Val. Really appreciate your stories and all of the amazing activism that you have done. It's very empowering. Now I want to pass it on to Debbie, who's going to talk a little bit about the Socratic Method, which is a really great way to engage in conversations with people.
Hi guys. So the Socratic Method was named after Socrates, a Greek philosopher who sought to get his students' views by asking continual questions until a contradiction was exposed, thus proving the fallacy of the initial assumption. It's a shared dialogue. So you want the discussion to go back and forth. You don't want to be preaching or talking at someone. You want them to use their critical thinking skills. So the goal, especially in the animal rights area, is to reveal motivations and assumptions of why people are not vegan and have them use their critical thinking skills to challenge those beliefs that they hold to be true on animals and animal rights and the truth of the popular opinion. So we, like most of us, have grown up in this society where it was taught to us that this is normal, that we need animals to eat and for products. But as vegans, most of us do or have already realized that this is false, and we need to help people to come up with those conclusions on their own. So to form their own opinions and to see the new possibilities which they can act on and develop a new outlook, like most of us have already done. So why? Why use this type of method? Because it is very effective. The bottom line, people don't like being told what to do. As a mom, I have definitely learned this. You don't tell a kid, go get dressed. You ask them, would you like to wear this skirt or would you like to wear this dress? And give them the choice and to come up with their own conclusion. It's human nature. It's how we are. And so using this method really helps to foster the psychology and biology of humans. So people believe and remember what they say, not what they hear. That is something I always try to remember when I'm talking to somebody. And as an introvert, I feel like I really like the Socratic Method because the focus is on them, not on me. And so I put it back on them and really listening to what they're saying and have them really work through their own thoughts. And so you want to inspire through questions, challenge people to think of a different perspective. So now then the how. So first you want to break the ice, whether this is at an outreach event or just on your own. I am not good out on my own. I do better in group settings with this. I think that's part of being an introvert, but I applaud extroverts and their bravery, and they can just go out. And Val, like doing it solo, you just inspire me. I'm like, I'm gonna do that. So breaking the ice, you want to smile. Your body language is so important. Try not to cross your arms, seem closed off, do all those psychology techniques of being open. So first you want to plan off, after you've broken the ice, plan significant questions that'll lead to the direction you want the conversation to go, starting with investigative questions. An example would be, what is the moral difference between eating a dog versus a pig? Try not to use why as your question, because it can put people on the defense, and we try to use what instead. Active listening is so important with the Socratic Method. So you really need to pay attention to what they're saying, remember the key points from their answer, and respond to that. Another good way to learn more is you could say, help me understand that more, because you want to feel like you're learning from them as well. And that will put them at ease and feel more comfortable speaking with you. Get to know your audience is always good in these investigative questions, because you want to meet them where they're at. You don't want to start talking about stuff that's so way over here when they're just over here. For example, would be climate change. Talk about, if they're really into the environment, maybe you want to come out with maybe an angle of why animal agriculture is so bad for the environment. And whichever path that those answers will then make you pivot or take this turn instead of that turn. So then going next after, okay, so now that we have gotten to learn our audience, you meet them where they're at, and then next you would now take these answers and hold them accountable for their cognitive dissonance, and hypocrisy, which we've all been there. We all, before knowing, like I was the biggest, I love animals. And I slowly became vegan. I watched Babe. I didn't eat pork anymore. This was when I was like in high school. And then I took an anatomy class and I was like, oh my God, I can't eat chicken. That's exactly like the human tendons and muscles. And then earthlings and I was vegetarian for many years. And then that's when it all just clicked. So I was the biggest hypocrite and I didn't even realize it. I wish somebody would have told me like, oh my God, dairy is horrible. It's the worst. And of course, always coming to people with empathy, because most people really don't know still the truth of it. And our job is to help the animals by helping them to have those light bulb moments, or even just planting a seed. We're not expecting people to turn vegan on the spot. All we need is just to plant some seeds. So by doing this, we use logic and reasoning to debunk their argument and have them come to the conclusion themselves. So we really try to stay on topic. Sometimes people will try to pivot and not answer the question because maybe they feel a little uncomfortable, or they can kind of see, if I say that, I'm implying that it's wrong and I know it's going to go against my stance. So Earthling Ed, I'm sure a lot of you know, he is amazing. He's amazing listening to talk and the way he uses the Socratic Method. And one of his examples I like is, do you think animal cruelty is wrong? Most people will agree yes. And then, do you think we need to eat animals to survive? Most people say and know that answer is no. So then you could say, if we don't need to eat animals to survive, and to do so is an act of cruelty because it's unnecessary, then most people can realize they're going against their own morals. So our goal is to leave them with a curiosity, to want to learn more, and to question those beliefs that they hold and have held for so many years. And again, we want to plant a seed. We're not expecting a tree in one short conversation of 5 minutes. So it's helpful to have something available with you after your conversation to give them a card, pamphlet with resources that they can go and research and lead them to. And it's important before going out and doing outreach is to educate yourself the best you can. Nobody has all the answers. And if you don't know the answer, and that's fine. Just say, you know what, I'm not exactly sure. I could get back to you on that. If you want to, exchange numbers, whatever the situation is. If it's a friend, I can look into that. Know your excuses. Know the excuses of the popular excuses. One website I like, yourveganfallacies.com, has a lot of the big excuses, like, if I was on an island and there was only a pig. We've all heard it, right? And protein, where do you get your protein from? Knowing simple truths of all the arguments will help guide them to the logic and the reasonings behind these false assumptions. And practice is so helpful. And to me, honestly, watching other people from on YouTube, even TikTok, being on TikTok and seeing how other people answer questions on other activist posts and kind of get a conversation going. I know it's not the best, I feel like, education wise for, I feel a lot of the trolls, but as far as how other people are going about answering these different questions too, has helped me see different ways to respond to these questions as well. And if a conversation doesn't go well, Christy will be up next to help you understand and maneuver through those tricky situations. So Christy, over to you.
Thank you, Debbie. Yes. So now, we talked about how to attract attention with doing outreach, and then we talked about the Socratic method. So now that you've been using the Socratic method and you've been asking some really, some really good questions, maybe you get somebody that is aggressive or angry or is like verbally attacking you. And that is when it's really important to try to keep your composure. And the reason for this is like, once you get angry and react with anger, and like, bring it back to them like that, your message is lost, right? It's not going to be effective. If anybody is watching you at that moment, it's best to, stay calm and keep your composure. So I do have a few techniques that I've noticed. I actually became self-aware that I was doing this like the last time I did outreach. Typically, I'm a very passionate speaker, and I speak very strongly, especially when it's something that I'm excited about or something that I care a lot about. I tend to be a very like, I come on a little bit strong. And subconsciously, I've noticed that when I'm doing activism, I tend to tone down my voice a little bit, just because I know that my natural tone is very like hard hitting. So, I noticed that after I had a really great conversation, I was like, you know what? I feel like I sound like a little bit like a yoga teacher. I have like my voice more subdued. And this just really helps people not feel like you're challenging them, and you actually do want to engage in a two-way conversation, which is the whole purpose of the Socratic method. Asking questions is to get people to open up to you, and instead of lecturing them, you are having a dialogue where their input is valuable as well, right? And your tone can really make or break that, right? If you're coming on and you sound really aggressive and you sound like you're attacking them, they're going to get defensive, and then that breaks that two-way conversation. Another reason why it's good to keep composure is because, we're already going against the grain, right? And we're going against the popular opinion and of what most people are doing. So we are judged much more critically than any other normal person, right? So we do want to take that into consideration, and you're going to be most effective for the animals if you try to keep that composure throughout the conversation. Now, if you ever come to a point where you feel like you're in danger, where you don't feel safe, it's absolutely okay to just walk away. Like, don't react to what other people do. Walk away and get yourself away from danger. Assess who you're talking to, and if you feel like it's not the right place or time to have that conversation, then get away. Your safety is important. If you feel like you're going to lose your composure, get away, because at that point you're not going to be an effective speaker for the animals, right? Now, with composure, a great technique, which has already been alluded to throughout this workshop, is to have compassion and empathy for the person you're talking to, right? I know that, that person that's talking to you, they might not agree. They might say things that are offensive, but you have to have a level of understanding of why they are where they are. Maybe you can align with it in a sense. Maybe you were that person a few years ago, or before you became vegan. Maybe you were that person that had that same exact mentality. So it's important to remind yourself that you were once there, and try to talk to them with a level of understanding and compassion. And I would say it never helps when you are verbally attacking someone. If you're telling someone they should go kill themselves, or they should get raped, or if you're trying to like put what we do to animals onto that person, you've lost that conversation. So we want to be a strong voice for the animals, but we don't want to threaten anyone. And I think a very good example I just had recently of having some sort of level of compassion was a conversation that developed with a rancher on TikTok that I had recently. And oftentimes I do notice that, especially on the internet, vegans may tend to be very harsh towards ranchers because they're the ones that are in the industry of enslaving these animals, right? And I absolutely understand why one would feel this anger towards these people. Um, but you also have to understand their perspective a little bit to try to like diffuse that and open up the two-way conversation. Because in their mind, we need the service in society. Like, they're providing a service to society, they're helping feed people. They think that this is something that is absolutely essential in our society. We know that that's not the case, but that's what they've been taught, maybe passed from family to family to family to family. So if you're talking to someone that thinks that they're genuinely doing a good thing and they're just trying to care for the animals best as possible, sure, they might send them off for slaughter, which is awful, but they think that that's the only way, right? So remind yourself of where they're coming from. You know that that's not the only way. By having a two-way conversation with compassion, you can explain to them that there are other ways, and channel. They say that they love their animals. Okay, you say you love your animals. So if you love your animals, wouldn't you want to know if there's a better way where we don't have to kill them at all? Like, talking to them from coming from a place of compassion is going to get you so much further. And I did that with this rancher, and we had a conversation that went on for days on TikTok. Of course, on TikTok you have like a limit of characters, so it could take a while, but this conversation went on for days and days and days. And at first he was more aggressive with me, but I stayed calm and I stayed nice, and like I really, I acted like, okay, I believe that you really do care about animals, so let's dive into that. You say you care about animals, so wouldn't you want to cause the least harm? If we can sustain ourselves, if we can be healthy without killing them, wouldn't you want to know about that? So approaching it in that way allowed them to be open to the resources that I was giving them. And I gave them really great resources, such as the Rancher Advocacy Program, which helps ranchers transition their businesses into more ethical practices, whatever that may be, whether they start farming plants, maybe they use their property in a different sense and start doing Airbnbs, whatever that may look like. It helps them channel their values that they have. They want to provide a service for society. So I firmly believe that individuals like that, I'm not talking about like factory farming, like the individuals that own factory farming, those people really don't care, but I'm talking about like the small farmers, the ranchers that are in it because it's been passed on from family to family. I think that those people have the ability to be our strongest allies in this fight. They have the knowledge of how to farm. They have the knowledge of like how they can do this. And if they're just provided with other methods and other resources, and we channel that love that they say that they have for the animals, they're going to help us bring down factory farming. I really believe that. So it's really important to just keep your composure, have empathy, have compassion during those conversations, because at the end of the day, we're not trying to fight people. And like, if we just keep creating a battleground where it's just a fight, we're never going to get anywhere. we need to come together at one point, right? So the best way to do that is to keep your composure and have empathy for the people that you're talking to. Have a level of understanding. Try to think about, why do they think this way? And how can I, you know, I believe that maybe if we start approaching it by assuming positive intent on their part, that'll open up the conversation a little bit more, where we can provide more resources and channel that positive intent that we already assumed, right? Of course, not every individual will react like this, but if you take it from that perspective, the individuals that actually do care, they might start having seeds planted. They might start looking at the resources. And we've already seen that there's many ranchers that have already changed their businesses. So it's already happening. The change is already happening. We can use those examples to help foster change in more individuals. Thank you, Mikey, for dropping that link in the chat, rancheradvocacy.org. I highly encourage you all, put that in like a notepad. I have that in my notes, even though I know it by memory by now, but whenever I see that I'm talking to farmers and ranchers that, that's their way of life, I point them to this resource, because maybe they do agree with you on some points, but they don't know any other way. They're kind of stuck. And I also will share that oftentimes it's important to know that those individuals are also heavily exploited by factory farming. They don't really make a lot of money. They're being used for their services and barely struggling to survive. So they're not in it for profit. They're in it because they think that they're doing a good thing for society. So Jody wrote in the chat, lots of animal farmers are getting into mushroom farming, which is true. Or some dairy farmers are getting into creating oat milk. There's so many ways that we can help transition into a plant-based food system, but it's very important to to befriend those that we think are against us, as opposed to fighting against them. Because when we fight against them, we're just adding fuel to the fire and we're not getting anywhere. I'll also share another one. Somebody on Facebook who was heavily challenging me, and really, she honestly, she was just attacking me, right? And instead of trying to attack her back, I kept my composure, and although I kind of wanted to block her at first, I ended up becoming Facebook friends with her. And I do strongly believe, like, she's not there yet, whereas like she only eats cow flesh, but in her mind she does this because she thinks that that's the least amount of victims. So she doesn't eat rice, for example, because of all the field animals that are killed in rice or whatever. So she kind of already has that mentality. She's just approaching it from a different perspective that I don't agree with. But I think it would be more effective if I have her as a friend and she sees my post. Maybe it'll help her switch, right? As opposed to just like blocking her. So there we have it. So we talked about, how do we do outreach? What are different methods? Valentina brought up so many great points. So having signs, maybe at the supermarket, having literature on hand, maybe showing footage on screens. You could use like a computer screen, an iPad, a TV, chalktivism, stickering. These are all different ways to attract attention, right? And then Debbie went into the Socratic Method, how we can use a line of questioning to really engage with our audience. And then I went into having composure. Now, after the conversation is done, it's very important to self-assess. And that way you can kind of like have feedback for yourself and ask yourself questions. What went really well? What could have gone better? What do I want to do next time? How do I want to change this up? How do I want to improve? Or how do I want to enhance the things that went well? And I will say that I always practice this, and I have noticed a pattern. I've noticed that my most effective conversations are the ones that I use the Socratic method the most. The ones that weren't as well, it's because I didn't listen as much as I should have, and I didn't ask as many questions as I should have, and I started talking to them. So that's just a testament of how effective the Socratic method is. There are other resources that dive really deep into the Socratic Method if you're interested in taking a look at them. I know, for example, Amazing Vegan Outreach has workshops that dive so deep into how to use the Socratic Method with lots of examples. So I would encourage you to check that out to get a real deep analysis. The workshops are longer than this workshop is. So if you want to really get into it. And then another piece of advice, what I tend to do is I'll put YouTube videos of activists doing outreach just to hear the conversation. And I don't watch them. I'll just put them on when I'm driving. I'll listen to it. When I'm cooking, I'll listen to it. When I'm cleaning. So it's just the audio. That way you don't feel like you have to be stuck on the screen for hours of your life, but you could just be playing it while doing other things. And that'll help give you an idea of how to overcome any challenges that somebody may have for you, any objections, and how all the different kinds of arguments and the different points. And this can lead to more research so that you can learn and grow and continue getting a better activist. I also really want to say, you don't have to have all the answers to get out there. Please don't think that. You learn as you go. So it's really important to just get out there and try. And with that, you'll be able to get better each time that you get out there. All right, so that's everything. Now I really want to open it up to the Q&A. I do see that there are some questions that were asked in the chat. But if you all want, I would love if you could like ask your question and unmute yourself too, if you want to do that, or if you want, just drop it in the chat and we can answer some questions now.
I have a question. And I guess I can like direct this towards Val, but obviously anyone who wants to answer. What would you say to somebody who, you know, really wants to get involved with solo activism, but they're honestly just nervous, they're just like scared, they may feel like maybe they're not prepared in the best, you know, what kind of advice would you give that person?
Okay. Let me see. First of all, have your leaflets, have like, you know, some, you know, information on paper that you can actually read together. If you're afraid to hand those leaflets as well, even just like a sweatshirt, you know, it's still like promoting compassion, and it attracts attention. That will work too. So joining like some groups, but if you cannot find any, let me think, you like singing, you can sing about animals, like know your strength. If you're a shy person, but you love the animals, maybe you're better, you know, on the computer. What I like mostly about being active in person rather than on social media is that I can reach elderlies as well. My mother is on Facebook, so there's no way that you could. My mom is already vegan, you know, I turned vegan, and my next door neighbor, she is in her 70s. She has no TV. She has an old-fashioned phone. So like, of course, she has no computer, and she told me she wants to become vegan because I told her, I spoke to her. So start with the people around you, and then maybe like, you know, the solo protests outside the circus can be tough, but I wish I could go everywhere where a solo activist is to give my companion, but they can reach out to me so I can you know, give the best advice, and also the videos, you know, that I can show, or you can find yourself, or the footage, they help you know more. And the closer you feel to the animals, it gives you strength. It does. You need to see the footage. I know it's painful, but you need to know what it's like. I've done vigils outside the slaughterhouse, and I was with a group of activists, but I never cried. I was angry. I was, like passionate, but I never cried. When I went to see the show of the circus by myself, because it was a very first time ever, I cried the whole time. The animals were not being killed, but I could see with my eyes their suffering. And it just made me stronger.
Thank you, Val. That's very good insight. We do have a question from Vegan Jody. It says, one of the challenges I have trying to convince people, especially people with lower socioeconomic status, is the challenge of privilege. They challenge that I have the privilege to afford plant-based foods, which tend to be scarce in food deserts. How do I address this? So whenever that kind of topic comes up, I tend to, instead of answering it, I lead with more questions. So this is a great use of the Socratic Method. I asked him, so how do you currently get your food now? Do you shop at a grocery store or do you eat at restaurants? And based on that, like, do you cook a lot? What do you currently eat? By asking those questions, I can find affordable ways for them. If they're shopping at a grocery store, we know that some of the cheapest foods in the grocery store are vegan. We know rice is cheap, legumes are cheap, pasta, potatoes, and then depending on where they're at, fruits and vegetables may vary around there. But if they're not eating, animal flesh and cheese, that's being reduced from that price anyways. It usually comes out to about the same, right? And I also let them know that it can be as affordable or as expensive as they want to make it, just like with any diet. Even if you're not vegan, you can eat very expensive foods or you can eat very cheap foods when you're not vegan. Same thing when you're vegan. It all depends on the choices that you make and what you choose to buy and where you choose to buy your food, right? As far as restaurants go, we're at a point where almost like so many fast food restaurants have an option. So if their only option for food is a fast food restaurant, there's a choice there for them, right? And it may just be $1 more, but the cheapest way would definitely be cooking for yourself and shopping at a grocery store. And I usually give resources, like if they buy at restaurants, Happy Cow is a great resource. But if they're shopping at a supermarket, you can even give like YouTube channels as an example. So for example, like there's Cheap Lazy Vegan on YouTube, and she has like cheap, easy to make recipes on her channel, happycow.net. Thank you, Mikey, for answering. Jody, do you have does that answer your question? Is that helpful at all? Awesome. All right. Does anybody else have a question that they have? You feel free to unmute your microphone. I'm trying to go through the chat right now. Thanks, Mikey, for that Cheap Lazy Vegan link. And these are just some examples. There's many other YouTubers that make affordable vegan foods. That's just one of many. So, that's a really good question, Jody. And my recommendation would be, like, if you're ever faced with a question that you don't know the answer to, start doing some more research about it and getting really curious. That's how I've learned a lot of what I've learned. People ask me a question, I'm like, man, I never knew anything about this. Let me start looking into it. And next thing you know, I'm like 5 hours deep into research. Were there any other questions here? All right. Ooh, I love those links in there, budget bites. That's great. So Valentina, also, if you're an introvert, start your activism by joining big groups in a different city, then ask them. That's also really great. Like maybe you don't feel yet empowered to go out on your own. It's great to learn by observing and by joining other groups. And one thing that I will say that is also really great about joining other groups is that building of a sense of a community. It's really helpful, especially for mental health, because you know, it can be really challenging on mental health to have all this knowledge and then you step out into the world and all you see is like cruelty everywhere, right? Building a community is very powerful because then you feel like, okay, I'm doing something about it and there's other people like me that are doing something about it. So that's a very great tip. Thank you, Valentina, for that. All right. Well, if we have no more questions, I want to thank you all so much for joining. I really appreciate having you. And again, if you are interested in joining Animal Activism Mentorship, Mikey has dropped some great links in there. There's a Linktree link that shows you all of our social media links, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and also our website where you can join this program for free and be assigned a mentor to help empower you and encourage you to get active and be as effective as possible for the animals. So thank you all for joining us. Bye.